This is CXO Secrets, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of business and technology leaders and reveals the strategies behind their success. Coming up in today's show.
I think people believe that AI is a magic wand and will improve all teams. I believe it's an amplifier. So I think if you don't have high-performing engineering teams and they try and adopt AI, they will get worse. And we are going to see all sorts of disasters where people have just taken on AI, done some vibe coding, thought they had an application, and then found that it's not sustainable, it's insecure, it's not fit for purpose, it doesn't solve the right problem.
CXO Secrets is powered by EDS, going beyond connections. Find out about upcoming C-level events, experiences, and insights at edsxevents.com. Phil Parker, EVP for Technology, Strategy and AI Delivery at Equal Experts. Thank you for joining us on CXO Secrets.
Thanks for having me on, David.
Whereabouts are you joining us from today?
So I work across our global markets, but I currently live in a little village called Twyford, which is just west of London in the UK.
I know Twyford. I used to work very close to Twyford, I think, in Maidenhead back in the day. But that's a story for another podcast. You mentioned global role based in the UK, just outside of London. What can you tell us briefly about your role at Equal Experts?
So yeah, I'm actually going to be back in the US a couple of times upcoming. I'm coming to New York hopefully soon, and then I'm going to be in Las Vegas for the Enterprise Technology Leadership Summit. So looking forward to that. But my role within Equal Experts, our organizational structure is very non-hierarchical, the way that we work. We're sort of quite unusual as an organization in some ways. But I'm one of four folk who sit on our global leadership team and who are expertise focused. Ultimately, our role is to help our customers with the challenges that they face, increase their trust in our expertise. And my particular area is technology strategy, which includes kind of architecture, transformation and emerging technology. And as such, the last year has been absolutely dominated by the topic of AI and specifically AI in delivery, which maybe we'll get into in a bit more detail in a bit.
Well, we absolutely will get into that. And just to mark your cards for the conversation that we're hoping to have today, it is very much about AI, and in particular, the pressure that leadership and tech teams are facing to do with it, facing to do something with it. And we'd also like to focus on one of the areas in which organizations really are seeing AI deliver some real value, and that's around software development lifecycle. Does that sound like a plan, Phil?
Sounds great.
All right, so let's get stuck into it. And I think there's lots of ways to kick off a conversation around AI at the moment, but one that I think not many people are talking about enough is pressure. Leadership and tech teams are facing some real pressure, I think, aren't they, to do stuff, to do something, anything with AI at the moment. Is that a fair reflection of what you're seeing out and about, Phil?
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of my time is spent talking to people in senior technology roles. I've probably talked to at least 100 people this year on this particular topic. The fact is we're operating in quite a high noise environment, a hype cycle, if you like. I think anybody that denies that is kind of denying facts there. And it's quite rare to have a technological innovation that such a large percentage of the general public are aware of. I mean, we've seen the stats on how quickly ChatGPT originally got a user base, faster than any of WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram or anything, and that's general adoption that's causing that. But I think with so many people becoming aware so quickly, it means that kind of investors, boards, maybe CEOs and CFOs are kind of aware of this, and they're asking very broad questions that often have maybe quite high expectations baked in. So, questions like, why doesn't our product use AI? Why are we still paying for a call center if AI can do that? Can't we get AI to build the new generation of our product? And these are pretty sort of high expectations, but the possibilities of AI and I think the likely value is a lot more nuanced than this. At Equal Experts, we tend to think of the value that organizations can get from AI in three broad buckets. And often these sort of get mixed up just with the two letters AI. But the first sort of bucket of value is sort of building AI into the products and services that our organization relies on. So, we've had AI in products for years. Machine learning has been built into certain products for years, but Gen AI is offering a whole swathe of new opportunities. But I think with that comes added pressure, your word, of competitive disruption. So will someone else put AI into their product that will essentially undermine our USP? But also, I think the risk of organizations AI washing their own products and actually not delivering things that have real value to their customers. So that's the first area. The second area is using AI for what I call workforce augmentation and process automation. So putting AI directly in the hands of your business users to aid in carrying out operational tasks. Ideally, this is allowing the workforce to focus on higher value, but inevitably it becomes entangled with expectations of vast cost savings. So vendors are using these sorts of potential savings to sell products that are often only a very thin veneer over basic models and capabilities. And the actual complexity of automating operations reliably is much greater than I think people expect. And then that third area, which really is my primary focus, is AI in the software delivery lifecycle. So how individuals, teams, departments, and organizations who are responsible for building products and services actually use AI in their own processes. So again, a lot of businesses still see IT as a cost center. So they're, when we talk about how we can improve processes, sometimes dollar signs are coming up on the savings that we're going to make. And we do believe that AI is going to be transformational to the process of building products, but it's not easy. There's risks, there's uncertainty in what is still a really, really nascent field. So I think it's something that's going to touch every part of the business, but a lot of organizations are really, because this is a technological trigger, are looking at technology leaders to answer all the questions. And if you add this to the fact that as a leader of people, you're going to have hundreds, maybe thousands of people who are uncertain about their own jobs and careers, and you're trying to shepherd them, it's a deluge on multiple fronts. So it's not surprising that people might feel overwhelmed by that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right in terms of that pressure piece. It kind of comes from the inside and the outside as well. Not only do you have your CEO, your CFO, whoever in the organization saying, should we be? Why aren't we? Could we? For all the right reasons. You've also got that external pressure as well. Oh, competitor XYZ is doing this, or the kind of unknown fear of the known fear of an unknown challenger who can spin up something and maybe get something on its feet very, very quickly. That kind of constant danger lurking over your shoulder there. But the word that you mentioned that's really, really important, of course, is value. The last thing that anybody wants is technology for technology's sake. And we've all been around the block long enough working with different companies and different clients where there's a danger of that creeping in. So understanding what it is from a business point of view, what the motivations are, and making sure that they are good motivations for investment and that it's measurable to get something out of that investment. The three that you mentioned, it's interesting, the three kind of value pieces behind AI about product services, about workforce, business processes. That was echoed by somebody I spoke to recently, head of data science and AI at Elsevier, who boiled it down to three Ps: productivity, product, and processes. And I think, in terms that mirrors almost exactly what you were saying. And I think if we transpose the productivity piece onto AI in software development, in AI software development, then I think that's absolutely a neat way of boiling it down. However, there's always a but, isn't there? And there are lots of pieces of research out there that paint this picture of organizations that are struggling to realize the value from their AI investments. I'm sure you've seen them too. One that I found earlier this year says 97% of organizations experience difficulties in demonstrating Gen AI's business value. 2/3 of leaders saying that they've not been able to successfully transition even half of their Gen AI pilots into production. Stats like that are pretty stark, aren't they, Phil? So what do you think's going wrong?
I think this is tightly coupled to what we've just spoken about, which is that people have expectations that aren't based on anything specific, but are fueled by external claims. So I think if you can't be precise about what you're pursuing, then it's not particularly surprising that you fail to find the value. I guess I'll focus on that third category, AI in the software delivery lifecycle. And the word productivity is interesting in this field, right? For forever, as long as we've had developers, there have been conversations about developer productivity. And often I think the wrong things are being measured, which is a problem. We can look back to the 1950s, Toyota Lean. We've got lots of kind of material on this, talking about bottlenecks, theory of constraints, focusing on developer productivity. What does that mean? The amount of lines of code that somebody's able to generate? The only thing we really care about is overall team delivery. And essentially that is time to value and cost of value. And you can have whole teams building the wrong thing very efficiently, and you're not going to work as a business. So I sort of worry about an overly narrow focus on what this actually means. And actually we see AI helping much more widely anyway. But maybe some of the misconceptions that are fueling these false expectations are interesting on this. And I've talked about these quite a lot, so I'll mention a few of them. I think, first of all, even what AI is, right? So the fact that people think AI is intelligent, or the fact that people bundle LLMs, which is a very specific technology, as some broad idea of intelligence, or compare it to human intelligence, is a mistake. It is a specific tool, a specific type of AI that does a specific job very well. It manipulates language. You could argue that means it manipulates knowledge. It does pattern matching. If you understand that, you can harness it to great value. If you misunderstand that, you can get the wrong expectation on what you're going to deliver. And a lot of the false signals that you get when you see people posting, haha, look at what this did, it's because it's asking the wrong question. And I always find it amusing when people do that. I think of a DIYer who sort of laughs at what their sword did, when actually it's the user of the tool that really matters. I think people overly focus on thinking that AI in the SDLC is all about generating code. There are numerous stats about the amount of time that a developer spends actually writing and producing code. And the estimates that I've seen are it's maybe 25% of your time is spent actually generating and writing production code. And what proportion of delivery organizations are people who do any writing of code? You start getting down to the fact that you might be trying to point this incredibly powerful tool at 10% or 5% of your overall business. So I think that's a big mistake. It is valuable there, but it's not only valuable there. I think people have concerns that the fact that AI is non-deterministic, so the same inputs will create varying outputs, means that people worry that it's not reliable for software delivery. But before AI, we had humans who are inherently non-deterministic also in the way that they produce things. If you ask two developers to write the same piece of code, they'll do it in different ways. If you ask the same developer to write the same piece of code twice, they'll probably do it in separate ways. So the fact is it fit for purpose? Is it high enough quality? Does it deliver value? And these are things that you can manage through the way that you prompt, the way that you guardrail, etc. I think people believe that AI is a magic wand and will improve all teams. I believe it's an amplifier. So I think if you don't have high performing engineering teams and they try and adopt AI, they will get worse. And we are going to see all sorts of disasters where people have just taken on AI, done some vibe coding, thought they had an application, and then found that it's not sustainable, it's insecure, it's not fit for purpose, it doesn't solve the right problem. And I guess maybe this summarizes it all a little bit, but people think that this is about tooling. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Having an expectation that technology will change your business for the better without addressing processes or people has never been a thing. There's never been a technology where just the application of technology in isolation can improve. But I think because of the intelligence factor around AI tooling, people maybe believe that. And I think that's a major problem.
Yep, it's as old as the hills, garbage in, garbage out. And if your queries are garbage, then that's not going to result in good output. If your source data isn't useful, then that's going to result in bad output as well. And people process technology. Many people are adding a fourth leg to that stool, which is data. About the data needs to be good. So in terms of the misconceptions that you share there, I think they're all very relatable to all of us, really. And maybe we've all fallen foul of thinking, oh, yes, maybe there's just a bit of an AI cloud on that Visio diagram that, stuff will go in and something else will come out and it'll be great. What are the things that you've seen? What are the practices? What are the processes? What are the ways of thinking that you have seen or maybe even helped clients to implement for organizations that have enjoyed success? We heard some pretty stark stats a moment ago of where things maybe haven't met expectations for whatever reason, but for those organizations that have been able to do a thing with AI and get value out of it, what are the areas that they've focused on that have enabled that good output?
So I think at the highest level, they have approached this as a learning journey and a transformation journey. So recognizing that this is something that is going to inherently change the organization. And so that takes in the processes of people. And I think organizations that are successful are doing three separate things or three separate concerns. One is the strategy. So in the area that we're talking about, that means understanding how effective your organization is currently at software delivery, being specifically intentional about your organizational posture on risk and things. I mean, we certainly have organizations within the UK who are concerned about their data being held even temporarily in the US, for example. So that there can be all sorts of things which will change the selections that you can make. And actually being imprecise on your posture means that people can be avoiding risks that don't exist, or people can be walking into risks that really do. So I think risk appetite and understanding realistic timelines for change is all kind of part of that strategic part. I think the second leg is enablement. I think raising literacy is really important. Experimenting with cross-cutting applications of AI. So, what can you do within your department with AI to help multiple teams? This is an area where particularly platform teams have an opportunity to really sort of say, okay, our job is to allow teams to focus on the business value that they're delivering within a particular domain. How can we use this to make incident analysis easier, or to streamline the process for change approval and things like that? So they're kind of all enablement things. But the third is exemplars. And this is where we talk about taking an actual piece of value delivery and using AI in every applicable part of the software delivery process to deliver that reduced time to value at lower cost without any unacceptable change in quality. And I see a lot of organizations creating that cottage industry around strategy, potentially, kind of endless meetings and consultation, but little action. I see other organizations think that enablement means buying licenses and giving licenses. And then actually you see this cycle of people paying a lot to give people licenses, and then questioning where the value is. And then actually sometimes saying, okay, well, we'll start measuring the usage. And we know that every measure is effectively not a good measure when it becomes a target, but inevitably it becomes a target. And people end up chasing, are people using LLMs rather than are LLMs delivering value? And this is why I think that exemplars are really key, because it's an actual demonstration, an applied demonstration of actual value. You're delivering real value that's measurable in the same way as you measure product value today in the context of the organization. And essentially that's learning in place, in practice, which for me is the best way of learning how any technology is going to be applied to your business.
I want to land on exemplars in a moment, but just to come back to one of the first things you said there about successful integrations, implementations, whatever, successful practices. It's about understanding transformation Now, many organizations have just been on a big digital transformation program, and I'm sure it's been painful. And there's been lots of, well, no, maybe it hasn't been painful, but it's hard work. A lot changes, and change is difficult within an organization. So that pill that needs to be swallowed from what you're saying about, oh yeah, well now AI is here, it's time for another transformation, guys. That's quite a tough sell. But then at the same time, because of the pressure, the inside and the outside pressure, actually knowing, well, then that's what we've got to do is a really important thing.
Yeah, and it's tough in terms of transformation fatigue. But actually,
Yes, that's exactly
the people that have done that transformation are the ones that are in a good place. Because assuming that they've done this right, I'm assuming that this means that they've got continuous delivery processes in place. You know, they've got good operability. They've moved from project to product practices. All of those things, I think, are precursors to getting lots of value from AI, and AI will allow them to be even more distilled and concentrated. I think one of the real challenges is for organizations that haven't necessarily done that transformation yet. And one of the questions here that I've had conversation with many people is, well, can we leapfrog? And my answer is maybe a little bit consultancy. I apologize for that. And it's like, it's in the middle somewhere. I think you cannot leapfrog, right? AI, if you don't have the practices today, AI is not going to be the answer for all your problems. But equally, it would be crazy to say, okay, right now, ignore AI and do all of the transformation, because there will be some of those things that you don't need. So blended transformation is really important here. What are the things from a traditional digital agile transformation that you would want to take, and which of those elements will change with the application of AI? So essentially a blended transformation, I think, is really key. And so from that perspective, you don't want to go down a traditional transformation route where you're ignoring it, but equally you don't want people who understand AI but don't understand that transformation process. So when you're bringing people in, I think you've got to think about people that understand both of those aspects.
Let's come back to the exemplars that you say are so important to getting this right. And it must also be so important to choose the right exemplar to serve as that, as per the definition, that kind of model, the standard that demonstrates value, that sets the direction for what's hopefully to follow. What's your experience of nailing down that right exemplar, that right model to follow?
Yeah, and absolutely, it is key. Although a lot of those factors are as much kind of socio-political factors than they are necessarily technical factors. I think it's worth saying from the experience that we've had, we don't believe that there are certain use cases that work and certain use cases that don't. So I think you sort of start off going, well, maybe it applies to some things, doesn't apply to others. In general, anywhere where we would apply a software delivery team, end-to-end cross-functional, we believe we can deliver value more effectively using AI as well. That there will be lots of factors that depend on how much more effectively that will be, which may be organization as well as on the individual thing that you choose. There may be really niche languages, niche implementation types that AI doesn't really offer a lot on in terms of what's trained in the model. It's not something that we've found as a problem yet. So we think it's broadly applicable. When we talk about choosing an exemplar, and actually it's worth saying, exemplar is a term that we've used for 15, 20 years because we've used it when taking people through those traditional transformations from kind of waterfall to agile or adopting digital. It's the same process again. But we always talk about a Goldilocks opportunity, and by that we mean we don't want something that's too hot. We don't want a poison chalice that's been tried 100 times and is destined to fail in the organization. But we don't want something that's too cold either. In fact, something that doesn't have credibility when you deliver it. So you're trying to find something which is in the right kind of area of difficulty, in that Goldilocks zone. It is worth saying one of our clients, I can say their name actually, Travelopia, because we have a public case study on this. They decided to go in pretty hot and chose one of their kind of front of funnel key business systems to experiment with. Fortunately, all went well. That's been delivered entirely into production now and is being used globally. And I'm a bit cautious of stats because obviously context means a lot on stats. But in this particular case, 95% of that code was written by, generated by AI, although obviously all owned by the team because this is very much about the way that we approach. But anyway, Goldilocks opportunities. One of the things that we found is that when we talk about the kind of demonstrating the value, one of the use cases that is a real sweet spot for doing an example with AI is legacy replacement or legacy refreshment. And there's a number of reasons. I'm not necessarily talking about like mainframe systems, that are 30 years old, but that kind of 2 to 20-year web applications that so many people I talk to have got, which are things that are essential to the business, but are essentially unloved for one or more reason. So it could be things that you kind of have a ticking clock on replatforming. So it's running on old hardware, it needs to be moved to the cloud. Do you do a lift and shift? It could be things which are using languages that used to be used, maybe only temporarily, but aren't being used now. Could be things that are on old frameworks, lots of different reasons. But one of the great things about tackling legacy software is that no one in the organization, none of the other developers, none of the delivery teams are going, I really wanted to be doing that. You're not taking anybody's baby, you're not taking anybody's opportunity. You're kind of dealing with a problem that nobody really wants to deal with. When we actually look at legacy, one of the reasons that it's a sweet spot for exemplars is that you can deliver it in a shorter period of time. If you look at greenfield development or something, there's a load of processes that you're going to do where AI might help, but it's not going to accelerate it as much. So with greenfield, you're going to probably be doing lots of user research. There's going to be lots of consultation of different departments. There's going to be lots of conversations about how you operationalize this, how you roll it out. AI can help with some of those, but it's not as distilled. What we found with legacy is that AI is amazing at reverse engineering legacy systems with quite disparate inputs. So we've taken legacy code bases, we've taken screenshots of legacy applications, we've taken transcripts from interviews with users, and we found that we can reverse engineer a really reliable full specification of an application in a week or two. And our customers where we've done this have said it would have taken us months and months to get to this level of understanding on this current application because it is unloved. And then obviously that means you've got a great piece of documentation, which is valuable to the organization. But also when we talk about the AI in software development, we want documentation that describes exactly what we're trying to achieve, because that's something we can use to break down and then use in kind of single shot development processes in order to actually deliver a replacement system. So real sweet spot in terms of legacy replacement.
And having worked in development for large organizations, as you mentioned earlier on, I never wrote a line of code, but it was my job as an SME to understand everything that went into and everything that went out of that application and the specification and the documentation, and to understand the stuff that wasn't documented in there. After a period of time, and I haven't worked there for 9 years or so now, I'm pretty sure that I know the application is still around, but I'm pretty sure the documentation would not have been kept up to date, and there will be gaps in that. So what you're talking about here is the ability for the AI to understand at a sort of SME level that code, the inputs, the outputs, the algorithms within that, and that would enable you, that would create a great platform to re-platform onto whatever is supported now, onto whatever platform you want to move it to. That sounds like Goldilocks. That sounds like, to use another metaphor, the low-hanging fruit that we kind of all, quick time to value, quick proving ground that then opens the door potentially to further deployments, further projects as well.
Exactly, yeah. And we'd often talk about organic growth of those post-transformation teams, of those AI teams, and you solve one thing, you demonstrate, and then you take on the next challenge, and you take the people and the processes that you've learned, and you expand those out.
Sounds great. Right. So to summarize where we've got to so far, Phil, right back at the beginning, we spoke about the sort of pressures that leaders are facing around AI adoption, the internal pressures, the outside pressures, the not wanting to do tech for tech's sake or AI for AI's sake. And we've gone on to chat about the ways of introducing AI so that teams can work alongside it. Those misconceptions about the intelligence, work alongside it, get value from it, and so on. And then we've spoken about really areas, particularly around the SDLC, around deploying, replatforming code, specifically in that exemplar at the end, their legacy code. Companies can really start to get value from it. we also spoke about one of the challenges, this kind of transformational mindset that you need to be on in order to really integrate it, really get value from it. For any of our listeners and viewers who are feeling the pressure right now, they are under pressure, what would you say to them are the, let's say, 3 practical steps that they might take to turn that pressure into progress?
I think, first of all, you've got to actually provide tooling. And I know this sounds like obviously really obvious, but anybody who thinks their team are not using AI at all is wrong. So if you aren't providing tooling which is safe and it is within the jurisdiction that you want, then you're probably exposing the organization to more risk than is required.
Shadow AI, I guess that might fall under, yes.
Indeed. And with that, I think organize communities of learning in order to get people to use this in a way that removes the duplication. So just providing the tooling to everyone, organize learning explicitly. This is a learning, it's a change, it's a transformation. You want to raise literacy, get people to work together. Like, we work in a knowledge industry. People are good at learning, people enjoy learning, let them learn. I think secondly, obviously we just talked about this in some detail, but identify an exemplar. Because as we talked about, if you do the others without actually demonstrating early value, people will get bored of hearing all of the good things that are going to come in the future. You have to actually show progress. And I think across both of those, make sure that you are sharing learnings. We talk about playbook. We've helped some organizations write playbooks. Some of those are available publicly. We can share them. But I think being really, really deliberate on sharing learnings at the moment is key, because it's such a time of change. And the other good thing is AI is really good at helping you to write playbooks, from your knowledge, from your conversations at less effort. So yeah, but provide ways. I'll call it playbooks, but it can be brown bags, it can be sharing sessions, but share the learnings as widely as you can. Yeah, absolutely key.
Fantastic. Yeah. Enablement, exemplars, lunch and learn. Love it. All right. That's great. Phil, thank you for chatting us through that. I think it's been really helpful to understand the process that you have found to be successful, and in particular embedding that or the exemplar opportunity, like you say, with legacy code, and understanding a bit more about the opportunities that AI can offer in software development, software delivery. That's really, really interesting. Thank you very much. Before I let you go, there are some quick fire questions that we ask all of our guests here on the show. And the show's called CXO Secrets. So I have to ask, what is your secret? If you were to put your modesty to one side for a moment, what key attribute do you believe has enabled you to do what it is that you do now?
If you want it in the form of a secret to share, then the secret is that curiosity never killed any cats. So I think one of our company values actually is learning over knowing, but curiosity is a personal value of mine. I think right now it's more important than ever. I think at the moment, blindly drinking Kool-Aid and repeating other people's claims is not curious, but neither is being wholesale dismissive. There's a big difference between being cynical and being skeptical. A lot of people claim to be skeptical and are cynical, and for me, that doesn't demonstrate curiosity. So I think curiosity is key. And I think as a leader, being curious about technology, processes, and people with an eye on continuous development is the only way that you can deliver value.
Hear, hear. We do a Pass the Question where guests on the show have the opportunity to pose a question to a future guest, whoever they may be. So my question to you is, what question do you have that you'd like me to put to a future guest?
So let's keep it on theme. So with the rise of artificial intelligence, what aspects of human intelligence do you think will be most important or valuable in the future?
Good one. Really, really good one. It's about that coexistence, isn't it? And as I've often reflected on this journey of generative AI in the current hype cycle, wave, bubble, call it what you will, one of the questions it's asked has been kind of paradoxically, about humanity, about humans' roles. And I find that absolutely fascinating. There's a lot more kind of introspection as well as understanding what the technology is able to provide. So I love that question. I look forward to asking it and hearing the answer from a future guest. Phil, it's been great to have you on the show. If people want to find out more about what we've been talking about today, some case studies about what Equal Experts does, or some of your many insights that you share online, where is the best place for them to reach out?
Yeah, LinkedIn's the easiest place to get in contact and quite easy to find. So follow me and please get in touch. I'd love to hear what other people are doing and thinking in this area. And yeah, Equal Experts website has blogs and case studies that I mentioned, and you'll see links there to some of the public playbooks we've done and other things that hopefully help you on your journey and maybe help to alleviate that pressure a little bit.
Well, we'll include some links to all of that in the description below. But for now, Phil Parker, thank you for joining us on CXO Secrets.
Thanks, David.